The Simpsons has got a bad rap, one largely undeserved. It came out around the time that Generation X artists were making all these rebellious shows like Beavis and Butthead and Clerks to challenge the complacency of the status quo, and it got everybody up in arms about offensive adult media being disguised as wholesome to corrupt baby millennials. I think that The Simpsons caught the brunt of this because it was colorfully animated and featured child characters, giving it an appearance of being more child-friendly than it actually was, and perhaps than it was intended to be. Drawing in child viewers, only to then confront them with edgy, dad-focused sitcom humor, castigating Homer Simpson's fun-sucking sisters-in-law, and Bart Simpson subverting the education institution to the best of his slacker abilities. Parents everywhere considered The Simpsons to be roughly equivalent to the modern horror of looking back at those old ads of Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble hawking cigarettes to their viewers.
Yeah, Barney Winston tastes good like a cigarette should.
Oh my god, keep that away from the children! Ah! As a result, I did not grow up with The Simpsons. When I was 5 or 6, I was actually told by a friend's mom that The Simpsons was misogynistic. Being possessed of strong feminist convictions, I decided that it was important to never watch it, out of a commitment to moral purity. About 10 years later, I told another friend's mom that I had refused to watch the show because it was sexist, which impressed her, and then she made a comment about the way they treat their women, which I didn't actually understand because I never actually watched the show. I was convinced that there was something repulsive about it, and felt good about myself for avoiding it. It was all very similar to the way that a conservative Christian avoids researching other religions for fear of being corrupted by sin, feeling holier than thou for living in ignorance like Adam and Eve before they ate the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. And I think that there is a strong Christian undercurrent to white Western feminism. I've grown since then, and I now think it's important to check things out and allow your convictions to be questioned. If your views change based on new evidence, that's just allowing yourself to improve. Now, after being commissioned to review an episode from The Simpsons' 5th season, I finally bit the bullet and watched 5 seasons of The Simpsons. And I have to say, this is what everyone was concerned about? You have to be kidding me! It's an intelligent sitcom with wit, creativity, and not really that much sexism, all things considered. The Simpsons doesn't escape the general sexism of the American culture, and some problematic views of second-wave feminism, but it intelligently plays with sexist tropes, and has a few sympathetic feminist characters, like Lisa Simpson, and even Marge Simpson to some extent. In my search for moral purity, I failed to engage with material that could have made my views more nuanced. I committed the same mistake as feminists assuming that Dollhouse was trash just because of something they heard about Joss Whedon and refusing to actually engage with the material, which was the whole reason I started doing these reviews in the first place. Not to mention the feminists who momentarily convinced me that dealing with dragons promoted slavery or something. It goes to show that feminists across the board may be subject to the same fallibilities. This is not to single out feminists for this flaw, however, as I notice modern non-feminist Simpsons fans absolutely refusing to engage with the problem with a poo, not even understanding what's being argued, before announcing that it's evil promotion of censorship and the death of comedy. I haven't seen it yet, but I know that it's more complicated than just an angry SJW ranting at the camera about The Simpsons being racist. We should all take a moment to analyze our refusal to engage with existing media and question if it actually makes sense. The episode I will be discussing today is The Simpsons Season 5, Episode 14, Lisa vs. Malibu Stacy, which originally aired February 14th, 1994, and was written by Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein. It addresses the 1992 Teen Talk Barbie controversy through the mouthpiece of Lisa, as well as depicting Abe Simpson's attempts to stay relevant in his old age, tied together with a loose theme of demographics who get shortchanged when society only cares about white men in the 18 to 49 age range.
It's awful being a kid. No one listens to you.
It's rotten being old. No one listens to you. I'm a white male, aged 18 to 49. Everyone listens to me, no matter how dumb my suggestions are.
Teen Talk Barbie was a talking Barbie doll that could say a random assortment of 4 phrases out of 270 possible phrases, a few of which were heavily criticized for perceived sexist content. Most prominently, math class is tough.
Math class is tough. Heidi dresses are fun. I'll always be here to help you. Do you have a crush on anyone? Math class is tough.
Mattel eventually recalled the dolls that said these controversial phrases, and had them replaced with dolls saying other phrases, while feminist criticism of the Barbie line's high femme personality is still ongoing. 2 years after the incident, The Simpsons retold the story of controversy, with Lisa as the stand-in for feminist critics. Lisa began as a simple joke character, where a little kid would say incredibly academic things in her little kid voice.
Aside from the fact that he has the same frailties as all human beings, he's the only father I have. Therefore, he is my model of manhood, and my estimation of him will govern the prospects of my adult relationships.
But over the course of 5 seasons, she evolved into an active, activistic character to contrast with Bart, the immature slacker kid. Both child characters are subversive to the American status quo by taking certain cultural ideals and extrapolating them into absurdist extremes. Bart the hedonist, and Lisa the intellectual. Bart is generally more interesting because of the fantasy fulfillment he offers, and being able to just seek pleasure, and to subvert the education institution that keeps him from attaining his simple pleasures. While Lisa is more of what people should want to be like, but is less interesting because of it. She is often utilized as a foil for other characters, in bouncing off of them, but she has her moments as a solo figure, such as in her jazz musician aspirations, that subvert societal expectations of her. And she gets a rare moment to shine in her role as an activist, in the A-plot of Lisa vs. Malibu Stacy. That said, I get the impression that the writers didn't trust her to carry the whole episode, as Abe's B-plot and other random jokes take up a substantial chunk of the episode. Aside from the joke about people caring more about people like Homer than Abe or Lisa, this B-plot has nothing to do with her or with feminism. And, I was probably commissioned to review this because of the feminist content, so I'm just going to ignore it in favor of talking about Lisa. Lisa's A-plot starts with the Simpsons going to the toy store. While Homer and Bart go after the traditionally masculine, violent Fortress toy, Marge and Lisa go into the girly section for the traditionally feminine dolls. This is a little cloyingly stereotypical. When I was a kid, I liked both types of toys. I imagine that a realistic Lisa would see the appeal of both as well. On the other hand, it does give a jumping-off point for discussing the girl-targeted dolls. Seeing a new talking Malibu Stacy, a riff on Malibu Barbie, Lisa excitedly gets it, eager to hear what her favorite toy personality has to say. She organizes a girl doll assembly, with the dolls eager to hear her Stacy speak, only for Stacy to say a mix of crappy sexist lines that the doll makers assumed American girls would be into. This whole scene is a tad absurd. I mean, what kid does this with their dolls? Even when I played, I just had my girl dolls be in on the adventure of the boy dolls. To a degree, Lisa is presented as an absurd feminist to be laughed at. On the other hand, she is also sympathetic. When she frowns as her role model toy says these crappy sexist things, we feel for her. Bart pokes fun at the obvious sexism, and she responds with a reasoned explanation why she cares, and why the viewer should also care.
Millions of girls will grow up thinking that this is the right way to act. That they can never be anything more than vacuous ninnies whose only goal is to look pretty, land a rich husband, and spend all day on the phone with their equally vacuous friends talking about how damn terrific it is to look pretty and have a rich husband.
Just what I was gonna say.
If there wasn't a little joke at her expense, it might feel annoyingly preachy. With it, we can understand her perspective and get on board with the premise of the A-plot. The Stacy doll does feel insulting, and even Bart agrees it's sexist in his obnoxious way, so Lisa adopts a role of hero of the common girl in launching her tirade against it. And this resonated with a lot of girls in the audience. They saw Lisa preach this thing and had feminist awakenings. I have seen gift sets of the scene again and again on social media. Millennial feminists love this scene. However, I don't entirely agree with the underlying sentiment. Teen Talk Barbie had a few controversial lines, but it also said some "you go girl" lines, like her studying to be a doctor. It's more nuanced than just being a sexist line-spouting doll.
Don't ask me, I'm just a girl.
The premise everybody assumes is that Barbie, and thus Malibu Stacy, is supposed to be what girls should aspire to be in whole, as opposed to simply a vision of a possible future, and a vague idea of what to expect life to be like. The toy line is varied enough, with Barbie and her friends and family taking on so many different roles that it doesn't function purely as an educational vehicle of what to expect when growing up, as it is a fun array of possibilities dressed up in a high femme aesthetic. Criticizing Barbie for being a shallow personality who finds math class tough strikes me as inappropriate for a character only serving as a popular personality. More girl characters embracing STEM fields would be a good thing, but saying that no girl should look like math class is tough, Teen Talk Barbie, is exclusionary of girls who struggle with math class. Like, you know, me. Like, I can pass math classes with effort, but I do find it tough. I don't like to do math operations if I don't have to. Am I not allowed to see myself represented in Barbie form because it doesn't fit with the second wave feminist mother's agenda?
Let's buy makeup so the boys will like us.
Malibu Stacy is less defensible than Teen Talk Barbie. Her sexist lines are really overt. She's not just a girly girl who struggles in math class sometimes. This aids in the humor of the whole situation and its absurdity, and it makes it so that Lisa fighting it makes perfect sense. She first tries to get other girls on her side, but they're passive consumers, unable to view the doll critically. They even giggle at the word sexist as a dirty word. Essentially, she is a joke kid, incongruously having an adult sensibilities, runs headlong into the trouble of trying to talk to real kids, who just don't understand her. However, as an autistic person, I can relate a lot to Lisa as a feminist kid who speaks with a high level of formality. When I was a kid, I didn't have the same ability to think critically about consumer products, and did struggle with saying sexist because it had sex in it. Ooh. But I did try to raise awareness about how it was unfair that girls were considered inferior, or that boys couldn't do girl things because girls are considered inferior, and there's an idea that this would drag boys down. I was very radical on the playground. I feel like they're not treating the feminist kid subject as realistic as it actually is. Lisa's child academia may have been conceived of as a joke, but it fits the existing phenomenon of autistic children. Hans Asperger famously described the autistic subjects of his studies as little professors. The first instance of the Lisa joke, in the first Simpsons episode, is absurd in her extreme youth and high academia, but the character evolves to a point in the 5th season where she fits a fairly realistic autistic child personality. I'm not the only one to notice this. The character has never officially been described as autistic, but several opinion articles throughout the internet describe Lisa as hand-wavy autistic representation, appreciated by many autistic viewers. I really feel that the Simpsons creators missed a golden opportunity to have a realistic feminist child character by making her canonically autistic. One of Lisa's friends complains that her Malibu Stacy doll is defective, and activates it to reveal that its voice box has been replaced with that of a Spider-Man doll. On its own, it's a funny joke about a happenstance mistake to ruin a child's day. However, it has deeper meaning as a reference to a feminist stunt in 1993, where a group called the Barbie Liberation Organization stole hundreds of Teen Talk Barbies and G.I. Joes, switched the voice boxes, and returned the dolls to the shelves, where they were purchased by consumers. Girls then got Barbies that said things like, "Vengeance is mine," while boys got G.I. Joes that said things like, "Let's plan our dream wedding." It's the 1993 equivalent to Real Girls Toy Ad remix videos.
Nerf's N-Strike Arsenal has a specialized blaster for any mission. You can improve your blasting speed with the Maverick Rapid Fire Blaster, while the Nightfinder's Light Beam targeting system allows for pinpoint accuracy.
It's a serious feminist art project raising awareness of gender stereotypes. but The Simpsons reduces it to a joke about a girl being denied a toy she wants. It's a disappointing homage, subverting the meaning of the stunt, and is anti-feminist in its execution for making it seem just awful that this kind of gender role crossing could ever be allowed to happen. Lisa asks Marge to take her to the creators of Malibu Stacy. They go on a tour and watch an informative video that, among other things, showcases Smithers as the owner of the largest Stacy doll collection. Lisa raises her objections during the Q&A, only for the female tour guide to totally dismiss her. A stereotypical sexist boardroom then calls out to her, and she leaves in a sexy saunter. It reminds me a lot of the problematic introduction of Samantha Carter in the first episode of Stargate SG-1, which puts her in a sexy pose and creates drama from her feminist demands for respect equal to that of the male officers in the boardroom. That was in 1997, and The Simpsons was already criticizing that kind of thing in 1994. That said, it effectively criticizes Mattel by exaggerating their sexism to an extreme degree, stripping the Teen Talk Barbie controversy of all nuance. Is Mattel that sexist? It's subject to the same American culture as anything else, so we can presume that it has some institutional sexism, the way that any corporation would, but I don't think that Barbie alone implies a Mad Men internal culture. Barbie is the product of a consumer culture that values the high femme figure that she represents, notably being modeled off of a German softcore pornographic doll for men to admire, and it took off in the States for fitting the popular image of a feminine beauty ideal. The fact that it is so popular is kind of sexist, but it comes from the general culture, not Mattel or the German sex shop. Even the name Barbie sounds kind of German, doesn't it?
Wow, the Barbie Museum.
Klaus Barbie, sometimes known as the Butcher of Lyon.
Lisa decides to contact the woman who started the Malibu Stacy line, Stacy Lovell, voiced by Kathleen Turner. So she talks to Smithers, who she now knows is a Stacy superfan. Maybe this kind of solo portrayal of Smithers is more common in future seasons, but it is really strange in season 5 to see him acting on his own like this, and not in his capacity as Mr. Burns' lackey. Of course, he's always been implied to be a sexually submissive twink, only serving Mr. Burns out of personal attraction and sexual gratification, but his portrayal here as the Stacy superfan solidly plays up his characterization as a gay man with other interests than Mr. Burns. Though, of course, he also comes up.
Hello, Smithers. You're quite good at turning me on.
You probably should ignore that.
It's far from a perfect representation of a gay man. He's clearly presented for mockery in his outrageous femininity and weird attraction to Mr. Burns. In fact, he embodies the converse side of the Spider-Man Stacy joke, a man with incongruous feminine content, like a G.I. Joe that talks about planning a dream wedding. The Simpsons doesn't like mixing up traditional gender roles. However, for its time, I think the representation provided is decent. Even as a joke, it broadcasts that people like Smithers exist and are fundamentally okay. He's not a predator, he's just a weird man fulfilling his passions in a harmless way. He can even help Lisa accomplish her goal while doing his own thing collecting dolls and lusting after his employer. Similarly, an offhand joke about Bart appearing in a gay pride parade derives humor from the idea that pride parades are absurd, but it doesn't portray them as harmful to society, and thereby imbues them with a basic respect. Even though The Simpsons was not intended for kids, they had an idea that kids were watching the show. The Treehouse of Terror episodes start off with warnings that easily scared children shouldn't watch.
Nothing seems to bother my kids, but tonight's show, which I totally wash my hands of, is really scary. So if you have sensitive children, maybe you should tuck them into bed early tonight instead of writing us angry letters tomorrow.
And I think it was valuable that they depicted gay people as fundamentally acceptable parts of society. Like with Apu, I think that representation is decent for its time, and would just expect it to mature as the show acclimates to the changing decades. I know the depiction of Apu has failed in that regard, and I guess I'll see how the depiction of gay people fares in later seasons. Lisa meets with Stacy Lavelle and shares her concerns, playing the sexist lines of the modern Stacy doll to showcase how off-brand the product has become. Lavelle wants to inspire girls, and the modern talking doll is a complete betrayal of this ideal, so she hears Lisa out. Lavelle is based on Ruth Handler, wife of Mattel co-founder Elliot Handler, who conceived of the Barbie dolls by watching her daughter, Barbara, play with paper dolls representing adults. At the time, in the 1950s, the doll market was based entirely around the idea of girls assuming mothering roles and they're personally acting out their taking care of child-shaped doll objects. Acting out adult roles omnisciently with adult objects was an untapped market. Handler ran across the German sex toy, Mattel ripped off its form almost wholesale, and they made a mint from it. Handler was specifically interested in Barbie representing a mature woman's body, so that girls would be more comfortable with puberty. Barbie would be a stand-in for the girl's future self. However, the concept of Barbie serving as a role model in everything she does in her personal and professional life might be more modern. I see no reason why Handler wouldn't be satisfied with Teen Talk Barbie, which is more feminist than her original design, in having a personality more fleshed out than English class ist tough. I apologize to my German viewers. Lavelle works with Lisa to make a competing product, a doll to represent a feminist role model, Lisa Lionheart.
She'll have the wisdom of Gertrude Stein and the wit of Kathy Geiswhite, the tenacity of Nina Totenberg, and the common sense of Elizabeth Cady Stanton. And to top it off, the down-to-earth good looks of Eleanor Roosevelt.
That one line might do more feminist good than anything else in the episode. I'm sure it inspired lots of girls to look those people up and understand why Lisa would like them. It's rather like the old Wonder Woman comics, featuring profiles on successful women. They'd come for the adventure scenario and leave with a bit of inspiring real-world knowledge. It also fits well with Lisa's high academic character, so it doesn't come off as too preachy. Aside from the subject now being feminism, it's not significantly different from her investigations into the Jewish canon, in Season 3, Episode 6, Like Father, Like Clown. The Malibu Stacy Boardroom reviews the Lisa Lionheart doll, concludes that it represents a threat, and decides to distract from its release by putting out their own product. A Malibu Stacy exactly the same as all the others, except this time she has a hat. A group of girls, led by Smithers, go nuts for the new Stacy doll and leave Lisa Lionheart alone, causing it to flop as a product. In the audio commentary, the writers describe it as a cynical take on American consumerism. Stacy fans would prefer a new Stacy doll with a very small difference and a different product that's truly better. Real-world feminist efforts often meet similar ends because it's hard to break into industries where marketers have invested so much energy into promoting brand loyalty. Some feminist write-ups of the episode make a point of noting that Smithers leads the girls, like it's notable that a man derails a feminist effort, but I think that this reads too much into his involvement. He's just an easy shorthand for the Stacy superfan, and funny with his presence among a bunch of girls. Haha, gay people, am I right? He has greater financial ability to collect the dolls, but everyone in that group would if they could. He might as well be the girl with the Spider-Man hybrid doll. However, Lisa notes that a single girl gets a Lisa Lionheart doll. Yes, Lisa has failed at replacing Malibu Stacy with her better product, but she has succeeded in influencing one person, and she counts this as a victory. Lavelle points out that it doesn't make up for the lost money that she sunk into the failed product. It's a joke about the marketplace, but it's also a fair point. Lisa counts it as a success, but on a basic level of business praxis, it's a failure. It speaks to the general failure of feminist products to break into mainstream industries, until fairly recently, when performative wokeness started becoming profitable. There's even a protein bar called Woke now. The episode ends on this ambiguous note. The writers consider Lisa vs. Malibu Stacy to be a feminist episode, and they note with some disdain the irony of Fox marketing the episode based around talking Malibu Stacy's sex appeal. A TV Guide ad actually used Bart looking up the doll's dress as a way to sell the episode. Though the writers had nothing to do with this marketing, it leads to the episode's overall impact having ambiguous feminist value. It calls to mind Fox's sexual marketing of Dollhouse, leading feminists to perceive it as anti-feminist without watching the show. Likewise, I have to think that this contributed to the popular perception of The Simpsons as a sexist show.
We can't watch Fox because they own those chemical weapon plants in Syria.
As for the plot itself, it's okay. For all their good intentions, the writers are not themselves feminists, and their take on a feminist issue is unnuanced and reductive in its simplicity. The B-plot has nothing to do with the A-plot, which causes a lack of thematic cohesion, and it turns into a show about Lisa and Abe each running around and doing various things that interest them, as opposed to making a clear point about the Teen Talk Barbie controversy. As a third-wave feminist looking back on the controversy, I have major issues with it, and think that The Simpsons is as wrong to portray the feminist critics as clearly in the right as it would be to portray them as clearly in the wrong. This is not the time for a black and white stance, and the extreme portrayal of Mattel and Barbie as sexist denies the complicated nature of real life. In its wacky adult-centric comedy, The Simpsons has room for nuanced storytelling that other sitcoms lack. And I'd like to see a clear counterpoint to Lisa's stance, saying that the Stacy dolls are fine as mindless entertainment, and are only problematic if taken too far. Maybe I'd replace the B-plot with Bart being really into action movies, and wanting to act out absurd stunts that he sees in fiction, while Milhouse acts as the voice of reason, saying it's fun to pretend to do it with her G.I. Joe toys, not to act out. And Bart could realize he's right after getting hurt, and the episode could end with Lisa walking by some girls playing with talking Malibu Stacy dolls, and then chasing boys who disrespect them. It could make a point about the fiction being important because it does influence some kids, while giving kids overall more credit, and presuming that they'd be smart enough to know not to let it affect their real-life behavior. As a feminist critic, I consider fiction's messages important, but I don't subscribe to the condescending tabula rasa parenting theory that says that kids are mindless robots programmed by authority figures' lessons, as is an underlying assumption of Barbie as the role model toy. As it is, the episode is too simplistic. The message is muddled. It certainly looks like the writers didn't have faith in Lisa to carry the episode. The feminism represented is decent enough, but relies on sexist extremes to get audiences behind Lisa's actions. And there's an underlying theme that crossing gender roles is bad, that even betrays the feminist critics to whom the plot pays homage. Fox didn't help by marketing the episode as sexy, but, like Lisa Lionheart being picked up by that one girl, the overall problems didn't stop it from showing some measure of success and influencing girls in the audience. Lisa's speech made many of them become aware of sexism in society, and led them to eventually become empowered feminist women. This is a show that I would have been happy to see as a kid, and I think it's a shame that confusion over what The Simpsons was all about led to so many parents becoming convinced it was misogynistic. Is it perfectly feminist? No, of course not. But for its time, it's a rare quality of decent. And that's something we can celebrate.
Right on, say it, sister.
Please like, share, subscribe, and consider donating to my Patreon. Pledges of $2 or more will earn you an explicit thank you at the end of each video. Thank you.